Now, I understand that the Holman family, there were 10 children in the family.
There were about 7 boys.
And 3 girls.
3 girls, and there were 2 mothers.
Okay.
2 mothers.
And Mr. Holman, what kind of work did your father do?
My father ran a grocery store, and a very successful one. He was a grand person. People loved him, generous at heart, and if you didn't have the money to pay, he'd go along with you. Now, when you do that, sometimes in business you get hurt.
Yes, you do.
But the people loved him. They knew he was a good, kindly gentleman, and he really moved that on to his children. And man, I really loved.
And the store was on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, wasn't it?
26 Norfolk Street.
26 Norfolk Street, all right. Now, of course, you went to Commerce High School in Manhattan.
That's correct.
And they called you Kid Holman at that time, didn't they?
What did they call me?
Kid, K-I-D, Holman.
Kid Holman?
Yes.
Well, I don't recall exactly where that came from.
All right.
But being at the school, I was very popular. I was president of general organization. I also, as you know, coached a team.
Right.
And had classes in physical education. Took care of any delinquents.
Right.
And just was a good, solid person interested in students.
Mr. Holman, let's see, when did you first become interested in basketball, and how did that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, I lived on the Lower East Side.
Yes.
And of course, there was several units where basketball was being played. And naturally that drew me to them. For example, the Education Alliance.
Yes.
Is one. Public School 62, Public School 75. 75 went to 6B and Public School 62 went to 8B where they graduated. You graduated Public School 75, and you got out there when you were about in the 6A, 6B class.
Yes.
Then you moved up to a higher class, so to speak, in Public School 62, which is just about a block away in a beautiful place. And while I was there, of course, I'm very much interested. They knew my capacity in sports. I played soccer, basketball, and I was very active in the general organization.
And you also played baseball and football, didn't you?
I played baseball, and it was soccer. They didn't play football in 62. At the High School of Commerce.
Yes.
I played football.
Football, yes, yes, all right. It's interesting that you were proficient in so many different sports. You were a good soccer player, a good pitcher.
Yeah.
You don't find people that are proficient in so many sports.
Well, I'll tell you, I was a product of the Lower East Side. And being in that area, becoming proficient in a sport was something like, well, being kissed by mother.
Yes. It was a natural thing for you, wasn't it?
That's right, and I loved it.
Yes, yes.
And I tell you, if I didn't have the ability to fit into situations such as I mentioned to you,
yes,
I could never make the grade because there's no politics. You either had it or you didn't have it.
That's right. Either you were talented or you weren't.
Exactly.
Mr. Holman, is it true that when you were ready to graduate from high school, the Cincinnati Redlegs offered you a baseball contract?
That is correct.
And why did you turn it down?
Because I felt it would take too much of my time. I couldn't handle it. You see, I ran a children's camp.
Yes.
A very successful boys and girls camp, which ran from, say, 6 years of age to the senior group, which is about 15.
And it was called the Savage School of...
No, it's called Camp Scatico, S-C-A-T-I-C-O.
Okay.
See, and it was a very successful camp, and that camp ran for 30 years.
And so you really just couldn't play for the Cincinnati Reds, could you?
I couldn't handle it.
Couldn't handle too much of it.
That's right. Because at the time the baseball season was on, if you're familiar with camping,
Yes.
that was the time I was really out soliciting children.
Sure. Yes, I understand. There's just so much one man can do, Mr. Holman.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about World War I. Did you enlist in the Navy?
I did enlist in the Navy, and it's there for a short time.
All right. Did you go overseas?
No, I did not.
All right. So basically, what did you do in the Navy during World War I?
Wherever possible, see, I told the folks when they knew my talent and all that if anything I can do to help, if they ran any clinics in any world, any Navy bases.
Yes.
You know, many of them ran things in order to keep the soldiers, all of the sailors, physically fit and to be interested and enthusiastic and to be part of a competitive situation.
Yes.
See, they also were given a little time off. They were given some nice awards.
Yeah.
After they're through with competition, you know.
Yes.
That satisfies the men a great deal.
I understand. Now let's talk about some of the early basketball teams you played for. You played for Newark, and for the first New York team to have the name the Knickerbockers.
Yes, and as far as Newark is concerned, I lived in New York City.
Yes.
Newark was just 15 cents ride over to Newark, either by the bus or what do you call it?
Subway?
Subway.
Yes.
See? And going back and forth was like a bus ride, and I met my obligations with him by arranging whether it was somebody at the home or the school, or even at the synagogue where I was going.
Yes.
That they excused me in order to meet that obligation because I didn't get out to practice every day. It may be over the weekend, and maybe once a week. This is representing the Newark team.
Yes.
See? So in that way, I wasn't giving up everything in order to go to Newark, say, 4 or 5 times a week.
I understand. Now, you also played for the New York Knickerbockers, didn't you?
Yes. Now, the New York Knickerbockers was a team composed of, some of my old buddies that I used to go to school with, and they started out as a Knickerbocker team.
Yes.
And we traveled around to different places under the name of the Knickerbockers, played professional rules, and they were a team that, regardless of who, what, and when, teamwork was the essential part.
Yes.
And it didn't make any difference who got the points. But if any man was not getting on the line, the management took care of him.
And you've always believed that a one individual player is not important. It's the whole team that's important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You've always believed that the team must work together. We should not make one man the big star of the team.
So right. So right. That's the way to do it.
That's the way to win basketball games.
Exactly.
All right. Now, Mr. Holman, tell me about a team called the Whirlwinds of New York City.
The Whirlwinds of New York City, composed of a bunch of star players. I don't know if I got them all at my fingertips now. Barney Cedron, Marty Friedman, Ed Wachter. At the moment, this is about. I'm thinking that at this point.
This is so the Whirlwinds was a pretty good team, weren't they?
They were a great team.
Great team. You
Yes.
bet. You bet.
And basketball was played on a team basis, and everybody knew who was doing it on a team basis. And when someone was making foolish passes or taking shots he ought not to take, the boys knew it.
Yes.
And maybe after the game they'd go after him in a nice way, you know.
Yes.
You know how short-lived your life is, my friend, they'd say to him.
Yes.
If you keep taking those shots, which should be pass-offs, you may not be around much longer.
I understand. So really, this was a busy time for you. You were playing 4 and 5 nights a week and riding trains all night to get from one city to the other, weren't you?
Exactly. I was a very busy person.
You sure were. At what point do you become basketball coach at CCNY?
Well, now, I'll tell you.
Or how did that come about?
While I was playing around, you know,
yes,
the people at CCNY needed somebody to coach. They wanted to get improve their situation up there.
Yes.
So they knew of me through my contacts in playing the game. That they came after me and had a conference with me.
Yes.
And I told them, as far as I'm concerned, I'll do the best I can for them, but I must not lose my contacts with some of the teams that I mentioned to them.
Yes.
In other words, I didn't know. Maybe I wouldn't last at CCNY.
That's right.
Keep me contacts.
Yes. So what you did is you were really the head basketball coach there, plus a player. You must have been a busy man, Mr. Holman.
I was a very busy man.
Yes.
You have to think of the camp that I was running, where I had about 300 boys and about 250 girls.
Yes.
And you have to go to each one's home, or in a home that's been recommended to you, who has 2 boys or a girl.
Right.
See, and then visiting by appointment a number of colleges in the Bureau of Placement.
Yes.
To dig up counselors.
Sure.
Very important.
Yes, you had to have good counselors, didn't you?
Make or break your camp.
That's right. That's right. Now let's see when you also joined, and you're very famous for joining the original Celtics.
Yes.
And you joined them for the 1921-22 season.
Yeah.
How did the Celtics come about and talk about becoming captain of the team and playing with people like Joe Lapchick? Let me hear your memories of that.
No, Lapchick never played on the Celtics.
All right.
See?
You had Horse Haggerty, didn't you?
Horse Haggerty jumped center.
Right.
Johnny Beckman and Nat Holman played forwards.
Yes.
Dutch Dennett, D-E-H-N-E-R-T, and Chris Leonard.
Yes.
Were the guards. And Pete Barry was the reserve man.
Yes.
And John Whitty was the road manager.
And Mr. Holman, you became captain of the team, correct?
No, I never was captain of the team.
You weren't. Let me correct that. All right. Okay. Now, let's see. At what point you were a great artist at faking and feinting, and it was very difficult for the other guards to control you, wasn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, as far as that phase of the game is concerned, I would say I not only had that skill in that, but pretty near any man of any consequence, if he is to move up the ladder, he's got to have that capacity.
Yes.
To feint, to dodge, to be very deceptive in all his movements.
Yes.
To stand up on the punishment.
And,
To be a good ball handler.
yes.
I think I've hit on some of the high points.
Yes, yes. And you would average around 10 points a game. Is that about right with the...
Well, some days, yes, some days, no.
Yes.
The reason I say that is that when we were out front, see, we spread it out amongst them, feeding our own men who happened to get loose.
Yes.
To give them the chance to get in on the scoring column. It wasn't to put Nat Holman up front as the best scorer in the game and all that. Our boys didn't play that kind of basketball. We played winning basketball, which is team basketball.
That's right. You weren't worried about how many points Nat Holman scored.
Exactly.
That was not a concern.
If Nat Holman got a beautiful pass off to one of his teammates, which rendered into a basket, see?
Yes.
Or he rendered that pass that Holman gave that man, and then he gave it to somebody else.
Yes.
Which scored a basket. Those are the things that give color to the team and the teammates.
Yes. And Mr. Holman, how good a center was Horace Haggerty? He was quite a good player, wasn't he?
Horace Haggerty was a good player.
Yes.
He was big and strong, and well, he had a sense of humor, and he was a good man.
Yes.
Chris Leonard was jump center for our team, and Joe Lopsick, who played for us for a while.
Yes.
All those men were great centermen.
Great centermen. Now, admittedly, at 5'11" and 165 pounds, you were one of the smaller men in the sport, weren't you?
Well, 5'11", I would say I was about 6'1", 6'2".
6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah. And as far as small is concerned, the others were taller. Pete Barry was taller than I was.
Yes.
And at the moment, I just can't give you the exact figures, but I do know that height did not mean a thing.
And now explain that, Mr. Holman, because, you know, people like Magic Johnson are 6'10", and Wilt Chamberlain is why is height not that important in your mind?
Well, it isn't important, providing the team made a drill and informed and clustered around a good coach who impresses upon them that teamwork.
Yes.
Is all important. Now you can have a good teamwork of boys that are about 5'1".
Sure.
See, and they won't go anywhere.
Yes.
But I'm talking about boys that are about 6'3", 6'4". A team of that height, 6'1".
That's right.
They spread it out. When they get to that point, they don't care who makes it as long as it's done professionally.
I understand. Now, wasn't there a case where the Celtics were so successful that the American Basketball League broke the team up? Is that true?
You know, that happened so far back, I couldn't give you the details on that.
All right. But,
I really couldn't give you the details.
But wasn't there a case where you wound up playing for Chicago and, for example, Horace Haggerty played for Washington?
That's right. That's right. Now, when that thing happened, I don't know, Jim Fury, the manager of the Celtics,
Yes.
was a very casey fellow, and he would do things even if it hurt the team.
Yes.
He was a good businessman.
I understand.
And he wanted the boys to know now and forever that he was the boss.
Yes.
So when it came to some of these things, they could have made a very deep impression on him.
Yes. Yes.
That's it.
Mr. Holman, how popular were the Celtics in the 1920s? Were they very, very popular, and basketball was a very important sport? Take me back to that time.
Well, that's going back a long way, but I will say this. The Celtics in that time, see, I was playing basketball in that time.
That's right.
And they finally took me over, you know that.
Yes.
Well, when they took me over, it shows that they were very much interested in progress, in developing a name for the team as one of the best.
Yes.
So I would say that as far as they were concerned at that time, they were very, very much interested.
Yes. And of course, I've been told that whenever the Celtics performed, you were the big drawing card. People would come out to see Nat Holman play. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'll have to leave that up to other people.
All right.
I won't comment on that because it's too broad a question. I'd rather have someone else say good and bad.
I understand. I'm looking at a picture of you and someone by the name of Johnny Beckman and Jack Dempsey. Did you know Jack Dempsey during the 20s?
I met him once.
Okay.
I didn't know him.
You weren't personal friends.
That's right.
How about the great Red Grange? Would you have met him?
I met Red Grange the same way.
But
I met him out in Chicago.
But you weren't personal friends.
I was not personal friends, but when I met these men, I told them how overjoyed I was to meet them, knowing of their past record in the field that they were following.
Yes, they were as good in their sport as you were in basketball, weren't they?
I would say so.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Do you remember Johnny Beckman?
Johnny Beckman was a great basketball player, played with me.
Yes.
And Johnny was the fastest man on 2 feet. Great shot. And when he went into the boards, his feet were up to his mouth, and anybody who was in the other side got it too.
Yes.
But while he was in that great speed, he had the delicate touch of loosening the ball away from his body and making some most spectacular shots.
Yes.
While he was in the air.
Yes. Is Johnny Beckman living today, Mr. Holman?
I think he's gone.
Okay. Now, people have always told me that you believed in Eastern basketball. What does Eastern basketball refer to?
Well, I'll tell you, there was basketball out of the coast.
Right.
There's basketball in the Midwest, basketball in the South, and basketball in the East. These were all coming along.
Yes.
But at that particular time, I felt, that the great players in the game were Easterners. And they had it because of the tremendous contact and experience that they had obtained.
Right.
In the settlement houses, in the playgrounds, in the schools, where they had great coaches. In the settlement houses,
yeah.
Good men.
Yes.
And they were teaching them basketball to be played as a team and not an individual.
I understand.
And these boys absorbed that, so that when they got an appointment on another team, they knew that winning basketball is team basketball.
Yes. And for example, Mr. Holman, the Western style of play has the fast break and the one-hand shot, correct?
Yes.
And you later reconsidered it and you installed it in your program, didn't you?
Well, I'll tell you, there was some basketball courts that had baskets attached to an upright, but no backboard.
Yes.
And you got to learn how to shoot clear shots without the use of the board. And that kind of behavior, as well as the playing in a net with no out-of-bound balls. And if you had the ball in the corner and I was nearby as an opponent,
yes,
I would grab that net with both hands and lock you in there, and then there was a held ball. Now, once I had the held ball, maybe I had the power on the jump at that point to hit the net and get the ball away from you.
Yes.
So there was a method to everything we did. And some of it paid off well, and others were not successful.
Yes.
But it was another, another slice of skill.
I understand. Basketball is really an art and a science, isn't it, Mr. Holman?
I'll say it is.
It really is.
It really is.
Yes. And when you were a coach, your city teams operated with very few set plays, correct?
Right. Very few set plays. Everything was on the move, open, because then when things were set, like a set jump and held balls, and out of bounds play or something.
Yes.
Most teams are scouted pretty well, and they can cross you very nicely by getting the possession of that ball for using the set stuff.
Yes.
But I say it's good to have it, use it when you can, but don't overplay it.
And you wanted resourceful, flexible thinking men on your team, didn't you?
By all means.
Yes.
By all means. I would give credit to any one of my boys who showed he's got the power to think and act and make decisions on the move in close calls, to a man who would say is just a great passer.
Yes. Mr. Holman, at this point in time, were there a lot of Jewish basketball players?
Well, there were a number of them there. There's a great Jewish team called the University Settlement. Bonnie Seaton, Marty Friedman, Willie Cohn. Oh my! Well, you dig that up for me.
Oh, I'll do that.
Oh, there was a great team, and I mentioned the top men too, Seaton and Friedman, at the University Settlement.
Yes. Because, as you know, most Jewish fellas, and you and I are both Jewish, are not big men. They're pretty small.
That's true, but they have the capacity to tie men up, to do things, sometimes to overcome the height.
Yes.
In other words, I would go, and you were the big boy. See, I'd go in close and try to tackle you and create a ball. Simultaneously, I'd have one of my other buddies come in with me, and the two of us would take care of you.
I see. So you had, if you recall, there were men like Ace Goldstein and Mo Goldman. They were good players.
City College team.
Yes. And
they were very good.
Very good players. That was quite a team. You had Tubby Raskin and Sid Trubowitz, Ed Warner.
Ed Warner. Listen, don't forget Holtzman.
Yes, Red Holtzman. That was some.
I had some good ones.
You sure did. You sure. That was some team. That CCNY. How many years did you coach CCNY approximately?
Oh, I'd say, I don't know. I'm guessing now. See, so you go along with about 30 years.
30 years. Isn't that something?
Yeah, I'm moving up from the freshman up.
That's yes. And I thought your record was quite something. You won about 420 games and lost less than 200.
I hope your figures are right.
I think that's correct. I could be wrong.
No, I don't say that because I don't carry those around with me.
I understand. Do you believe that all basketball is a pattern, Mr. Holman?
Well, listen, as far as a pattern is concerned, if there is a pattern, it's done on a team basis.
Yes.
And someone skilled in performance knows how to reach these boys so that they play as a team. And team basketball is dangerous basketball.
Yes.
It's winning basketball. And the other part is just a selfish game for individuals to obtain points to make the headlines.
That's right. And you don't believe in that?
I absolutely not. It is not going to get you anywhere in the long run.
Yes. And one thing about your players, they knew how to play all four corners of the court and the middle also, didn't they?
Well, they utilized the space available at the time the ball was in their hands.
Yes. Yes. And you didn't believe in excessive dribbling and fancy passes. You didn't believe in any of that, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
No, and anyone is over-dribbling when they should release that ball and give it up. See?
Yes.
Was criticized at some future time.
I understand. And how close would you get to your players? A lot of times a coach almost becomes like a father figure. Were you kind of a father figure to your men?
Well, let's put it this way. As far as I'm concerned, they're all my boys.
Yes.
And anything I can do to help them, I'll be a source of joy.
Yes.
Also, I want them to know that if anything is not right, be prepared for me giving them a criticism like a father to a son.
Yes.
And that was done religiously. I said, listen, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you.
And I think they understood that.
They sure did.
How about if a player disagreed with you or your strategy? Would you listen to him if he had a suggestion?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, after I used up all my qualities to bring him around, see,
Yes.
I then would sit him out, regardless of how the game was going. In other words, I may have been 10 points out front. I'd keep him out.
Yes.
And I wanted him to know it, see. And I didn't tell him that, see, but he knew.
Sure.
He knew.
Sure.
And one of the cause for that action is his attitude towards team play.
Yes. That was the most important thing you stressed, was the team was the important thing.
Absolutely.
Not the individual.
Well, now let me put it this way. As far as the individual is concerned, I'm very much interested in the individual.
Yes.
His future career, the things that he's doing at the present time, keeping up with his studies.
Yes.
A good homeboy with his family. Those are all very important to me.
Sure.
And if I knew he was weak in any one of those areas, I would try to get him at some time, as I would listen with my own family.
Sure. So if one of your boys had a problem, let's say at home, or a personal problem,
Yes.
could he come to you and discuss it?
If he didn't come to me, I would find out.
You would find out about it.
I would find out about it, and then I'd have him come to me anyway. I'd want to see him.
Yes.
Because that part of it will also affect his game.
That's right. If he's unhappy at home, he's not going to be good on the court, is right? And Mr. Holman, how would you assess your relationship with the press when you were a player and a coach?
My relationship as a player has always been pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't recall getting involved with any of them.
Yes.
And as a coach, I had a job to do. I realized that I had to do things properly because the press is on top of you all the time.
That's right.
And that as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to do the best I can. And if there are any problems where I think the press may be at fault or something, when I have the opportunity, I would ask one of the pressmen, when he has a moment, if he can drop at the college, I'd like to talk to him for a while.
Yes.
And that was returned quickly because they thought he had something real hot.
Yes.
And hot or cold, in a nice way, I told him exactly how I felt.
Yes.
And I think that they appreciate it.
Yes. Because as you know, sports writers can be pretty rough. They can second guess a coach and criticize a coach.
That's right, that's right.
They can be pretty rough, as you know.
That's right.
But I think in most cases during your tenure, they treated you pretty fairly, don't you think?
Yes, and they also knew of my professional background.
That's right. That's right.
See, that I didn't get it entirely out of the textbooks.
That's right. And you weren't a Leo DeRocher type, not that he was a bad man, but you didn't have that kind of personality.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yes. Do you remember your great center, Ed Roman, who was about 6'6"?
I remember Ed very well.
Yes. How good a player was he, Mr. Holman?
Ed was a good basketball player. He was the type that didn't have the speed as much as some of the other centers did.
Yes.
He was a good ball handler, a good board man. By board man, I mean getting that ball off the backboard. See?
Yes.
Very unselfish. And he just lacked the speed that the other fellows had. But he was not deficient in ball handling. See?
Yes.
He pretty decent fellow. Boys on the team liked it.
Yes.
But when you're picking on certain men, there's a certain plus somewhere on the blackboard.
Yes.
That stands out. That puts that man up front.
I understand. And of course, you had another great player in Ed Warner.
Ed Warner was a boy from up around Holman. Ed was a good basketball player. He got his experience from coming up from the Holland Globetrotters.
Yes.
And he was playing in Holland in the playgrounds, and he got around a good deal in the off season.
Yes.
And I think that all helped. In addition to that, I found him very cooperative and very obedient. And again, I say, if he or anyone else didn't fall in line, I was a tough taskmaster.
That's what I understand.
There's nothing personal. I'm trying to develop a good student.
Yes.
And that's all. If they accuse me of that being bad tactics, then I'll take anything they give me.
I understand. But I think you always treated your players fairly. They couldn't accuse you of playing favorites or being.
Right.
You always were fair.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I think so.
Yes, yes. And if you remember. Yes.
I always liked Floyd. I thought he was a very fine person and cooperative.
Yes.
And took criticism very nicely. And what's the other fellow's name?
Al Roth.
Al Roth. He was a little heavy.
Yes.
But Al was a good basketball player. He was rugged.
Yes.
He was rough. He was aggressive. Knew how to figure out what the opponents were doing, and never complained about anything. I liked him. He was a nice boy.
Yes. If I remember, he was a very good set shot artist, wasn't he?
Well, that's going back a long way for me to remember that.
I understand. Yes.
He may have had a good shot.
Yes.
See, but I don't know how good it was, but when I say you're talking about a great shot, you know, some of these boys were hitting in a 94% level.
Fantastic, Mr. Holman. Fantastic. How about Erwin Dambrot?
Erwin Dambrot was a very fine basketball player. I was very fond of Erwin because he went in there and gave 100% every time he played.
Yes.
And he enjoyed physical activities aside from basketball that gave him a certain amount of speed, dexterity, capacity to handle difficult situations, good rebound man, and he was a good team man.
Yes, yes, yes. And CCNY became so popular that the whole country was really watching you as opposed to just folks who lived in New York, weren't they?
Well, I'd rather have other people say that.
All right.
As far as I'm concerned, I had a job to do. I try to do it as well as I can.
Yes. Yeah, that's really all the people could ask of you.
Exactly.